Hello everyone, welcome to International Security and Peace class. And today is our very last class. Today is a little bit different from what we have learned so far. So we talked about like different kinds of ism, so realism, liberalism, constructivism. And then we start with different story, right? So we talked about war, we talked about genocide, we talked about masculine and terrorism, so different kinds of conflict. But environmental issue is totally different from that one because it's not really killing someone like that. But why we should talk about this? That's very important because when we talk about security, when we start our class from the very beginning, we talked about different kinds of security. So we talked about like human security, private security. So environment change is overarching kind of problems because it's not only national problem, at the same time it's a global problem. At the same time, it's a very personal problems. So you probably heard the news that sometimes people died because of weather change. You know, like because of hot weather, people die. Because it's too cold, people die like that. And it's where I mean this related highly related to, of course, um, security. Maybe it's not really a conflict, but it caused conflict. So we will talk about that. So environment security. So when we talk about like environment security these days topics are very popular. So scholars actually started to study and investigate these issues a lot. The environmental security exams how environmental challenge such as climate change, deforestation, and water scarcity intersect with traditional security concerns. So, like, I believe you will feel that climate has been changed over time. Actually, I felt in person very strongly. So South Korea wasn't this hot, like I don't. When I until I was high school, we didn't have air conditioner at home, so we couldn't but we could stay. So that's but now without air conditioner in the summer, even it's hard to breathe. And then when I was my like middle school and high school, the Korea was if we say oh it's really hot weather, then it's just 32 Celsius degree like that. But these days like 37, 38. Climate change actually I can feel in person. And deforestation, it occurs in many countries, Latin American countries and African countries like that. And water scarcity has been always problematic, but this because of this climate change, it becomes more serious. And then these issues actually intersect with traditional security concerns. So this becomes more global issues. And then, as I believe you remember, Chernobyl disaster occurred in 1986, and then this event actually highlighted this awareness. The Chernobyl disaster occurred on April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near the city of Pripyat in northern Ukraine. So I probably you were not born at the time, but I was only 6, so I don't have very strong memories on that. But I watched movie Chernobyl, so you should actually watch the movie. In the movie, there was a lot of residents, but that resident would should evacuated were evacuated for 36 hours later, and it caused a lot of problems. And then it actually caused global impact. So radiation spread across Europe, raising awareness of nuclear safety worldwide. So as you probably noticed, the European countries actually obsessed with the green policies, Germany and many countries, and then they wanted to change from this traditional energy to green energy. It's because of this. They believe that this nuclear energy is not safe enough. We had a very similar issue in Northeast Asia, Japan, they wanted to through contaminated water. So that was exposure to radiation, and then they hold the water, but they actually they wanted to throw away to the sea, contaminated water. So Japan at the time, the Korea at the time it was Yoon Suk Yeol's government. So Yoon Suk Yeol government didn't take actions against it, but China, they did actually actions against it. They criticized Japan, and there was a movement not to eat fish from the East Sea like that. But I felt people are very easy to forget. You know, people forget what happened. So this is totally fine, but it raised conflict like that. So, environment change, global environment issues actually becomes more important than ever. So, lack of development was related specifically to environment scarcity. The poor are hungry due to a lack of food, but not because of poverty. Shortage of agricultural land and rainfall are supposedly to blame. So the security, how this environment issue becomes security issues. So I think there are two parts. One part is that, for instance, now we are talking about the CO2 emissions. So we wanted to control that. So many third world country criticize the first world because the first world already achieved economic development, so they don't have to worry about CO2 emissions or gas emissions, or they don't really need to bother environment. But at the same time, they can change their energy, its energy, from traditional one to more safe one. So but they don't really have to be bothered about it because they already achieved economic development. But at the third world country, they couldn't achieve economic development yet. But because of this first world country's decision, they lost their chances to use traditional energy to become wealth. That's the problem. So they criticize, oh, you guys are already developed, but it's our turn to be developed. But because of your green policy kind of things, we actually lost our chance to be developed, and we can't change our um, energy from traditional one to green ones. So it's very costly. So that's the one part, and the other part, because of this culture, this climate change kind of things, the agricultural land and rainfalls are become smaller and smaller, getting smaller. So that means this would be cause a lack of it in the future. So this will be, I think, the possibility of conflict among country. It is not yet, but it would be. It's highly likely. That's the scholar. That's why the scholars actually having, they try to have interest in that. And then the environmental threat. Is there evidence that environmental matters actually do cause a conflict? That's the first question we should ask. It seems to be common sense that environmental shortage would lead to conflict as people fight over resource. Variety of data on environment and resources, and conclude that there was a little in their research to support the argument that environment change causes war either. So we think that, oh yeah, so we know that environment issues important and environment matters, and then we can see there is big problems in terms of environment, but is there evidence that environmental matters actually do cause a conflict? Is there a fight, real fight among countries? That's the questions we should ask. But it seems to be common sense that environment shortage would lead to conflict as people fight over resource in the future, but not yet. So, like for instance, like think that South Korea, we don't have much arable land, but if that land becomes smaller and smaller, then we have to maybe looking for the better adorable land to a north area, right? Then maybe we have to fight against in terms of land like that. So it will have a, I think it doesn't actually cause it, we didn't fight it yet, but it has a high possibility to lead to conflict. A body of data on environment and resources and concluded that there was little in their research to support argument that environment change caused a war either. So there was no war because of this environment. But there's always a possibility. I mean, we have to actually solve the problems from this issues from different kinds of ism. So we learn different kinds of ism, and then how realism would uh, would answer the question. Uh, so do you think that the realist would say, "Oh, this is not hard core war or anything like that, or it's not really like economy," or they say, "Oh no, this would be very important because this will be linked to our resources. Resources matters for realism as well because realists believe that resources can be translated into military strength. So we have to actually look up from different perspectives. So rich resources are worth fighting for if one has few other economic opportunity. Resource war are the result where states are unable or leaders unwilling to share the wealth and use the revenues to ensure the development. That's the point. So we don't have evidence that the that we had to fight against it, but there is always possibility.